Hi everybody, and welcome once again to my show, Oberon's Outlook on the Emotional Exchanges, which is my weekly tarot forecast for the emotional lives of the Zodiac signs as they're arranged by their elemental association. So this forecast is good for today, Friday, September 28th, until next Thursday, and that should be September 4th. So this hopes to give you the ideas about what's going on, your currents, your undercurrents, everything like that. So we're going to get started right away, but first we're going to have our collective thought of the day. So here goes, and for that I use the deck known as the Isis Tarot. It's actually not really a tarot, it's probably more similar to other oracle cards. But I'm going to go ahead and use this today as our thought for the day. So here goes. And thank you for viewing. And it's my old habit to always cut the deck 3 times, usually to the left, so I've done that. And I have the spinning wheel, which is reversed. So that's number 24. So let's take a look at that and read that here real quickly. Oops, a little too far. The spinning wheel. Worrying, critical of your mind, frigidness, narrow-mindedness, jealousness, unsatisfaction, always finding faults in others, living in the past, a slave of self-created situations. Perhaps we're all living too much in the past. Parental authority establishes itself. Your family takes on too much of your time. You lose the thread of something you occupy yourself with, boredom. So that's kind of like a depressing collective thought, but from that what we can take is that right now there's probably some bit of emotional upset, and it's best to try not to dwell on it, but try to think ahead. So in a moment we're going to go through with our reading. Okay, so first we do the air signs, and then we move through those elemental associations, moving to the fire, and then the water, and then the earth. So we're going to get started in just one moment. All right then, so now we're going to move on to our first reading, and that is for the air signs. And the air signs are, of course, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So our first position is what we call the word of the week, and I use a different deck for that. And the word of the week is supposed to kind of give us a motto or a slogan or a thought to think about for us air signs, to help us get through what's going on our emotional levels this week. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that card just randomly. Whoa, and I've dropped it. So that's embarrassing. One moment. And that card is premonition. So this is a word of advice to think about the things that are happening in our emotional lives as if we are receiving them as an intuition, that it may be better for us to understand this more at a deeper level, a quieter level, a more introspective level. So think about what happens emotionally this week from the perspective that maybe you already know something about that and can reflect a little more calmly, not be overly excited perhaps, that kind of thing. So we're going to go and move on now to the actual reading. And I'm going to go ahead and shuffle those cards, hopefully not dropping too many more of them. And this card, the first position, is what emotional happiness will air signs find this week? What emotional happiness faces us this week? What kind of good things, hopefully, can we look forward to? But of course, if they're not good, this may be reflected here. And our first card is the Two of Swords. It's reversed. Well, it's not really a bad card. I mean, I look like I'm grimacing there, but I think that some of us from that emotional level, we may find that we've been released. We may find that we no longer have an obligation to a particular emotional thing. It could be that maybe if it is an actual relationship, maybe there's a change in the status quo of that relationship. Maybe air signs are going to actually find that they're walking in a new direction. I won't say exactly it signifies a breakup for people in relationships, but maybe there's a change in the status quo in terms of you finding out or feeling something's really different now. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You just may have a really, really different kind of understanding there about what your partner was. But if it's not about a relationship, then it may be saying that certain things that maybe have not exactly been lighting your fire, so to speak, or maybe they're just not good enough. Maybe they're not horrible things, but maybe they're not good enough. But you're going to be perhaps also too considering walking away from those, walking towards something else, a wiser choice perhaps, a more informed choice. I like to say informed choice because the idea of the Two of Swords reversed to me also indicates that to some degree a veil has been lifted, or that you somehow have a way of seeing something you didn't see before. And so it is possibly with this knowledge, this illumination, you're freed from something. You're freed from a restraint maybe. You're freed from not understanding or seeing something about an emotional situation. And remember earlier I said premonition was your word of the week. And so I'm thinking too that with that going on, maybe this is responding to that too, that air signs perhaps are going to have some premonitions, and maybe this knowledge will inform their movement. So now I'm going to move on to our second card. And that card is the Three of Wands. And it's upright. This is a nice card here, the Three of Wands. Let's put that right in there if I can get it. There we are. And this Three of Wands seems to indicate to me, well, number one, it's the position. The emotional challenges or surprises that you may face this week. And so as a challenge, this is saying maybe there's a little bit of a waiting game here. Or maybe it's a surprise that maybe you're finding out that something is actually happening that you have been waiting for. The Three of Wands often talks about investments made and sort of just sitting back and letting that happen. And so I'm thinking this is really a clear idea that it's true, and that's what your challenge or surprise is that either something that you hadn't really been expecting perhaps is pleasantly going to turn around. It may be that your premonition is helping you here with this. Maybe your premonition is finally saying, hey, remember that thing? Something's happening with it. And so you should be open to be surprised by that. It may be a surprise, but deeper inside it wasn't. Maybe something was sensed there on some level. Now, another thing with the three, as far as the challenge goes, I mean, I guess you could say that it's challenging sometimes to be patient, but maybe too, it's also the idea too of how you move yourself once your ship comes in. What are the challenges to you when you really have that level of attainment, so to speak? Because the implication there really is sort of like a sense of mastery, a sense of accomplishment, of being in charge. So that too is a surprise and a challenge for you perhaps. Now our last card is what will concern either or all your romantic relationships, or your platonic relationships, or your family relationships, or things that fall into those general categories. And it's the King of Discs. And the King of Discs is upright. So that's a good thing there. Now the King of Discs to me, maybe this is saying that the energy that's going on with these relationships is something masterful, as a king would embody too, but that really guiding element there, I think, is somehow security and sure movement, the movement of progressing towards a goal. This king, the King of Pentacles, would often seem to indicate somebody who really has accomplished themselves materially. Now, for each of our contexts, that could be very different. I'm at the point now where I would want to be impressed by somebody who's really big in stocks and investments. But somebody else might be really more impressed with somebody who just has that super stable job and is able to support their family without undue stress elsewhere. I mean, it's all about our context and what level of material acquisition we want to accept. But in general, this is really a good idea here, and I think this is saying that for our romantic relationships or our family relationships, somebody is really providing well for us, and that maybe that person is you, that maybe that's what you bring, is that sense of satisfaction of being able to be the king in those various vignettes in your life, of being masterful and being able to bring that. So I think that's what it's talking about. Remember too that this also could be affected by your own ability to have a premonition here. I mean, if for some reason this is not really you, then maybe there's someone else you might sense there. It could be something else that's coming to you and is going to be that compliment. I mean, maybe you're not the real big benefactor, but maybe you know who that is, and that person is coming into your relationship. It's coming into your worker place, your platonic coworker friends, or it's coming into your family. So that's what I have for you guys in the air sign realm. So we're going to move on right now. So now we're going to move on to the fire signs. And fire signs are, of course, Aries and Leo and Sagittarius. And we're going to read their word of the week. And their word of the week is cooperation. So I want you fire signs to think about that. I live with a fire sign, so I kind of understand some of this. I'll just be honest and say that sometimes fire signs may bear the brunt of feeling like they're the leader always, whether they want to be or not. But most of us really do want to help each other. So think about that. Cooperation is your word of the week. You would do well to remember that. These are some really turbulent times emotionally and otherwise. And we'll only do better if we all learn that we're really all honest partners here. Despite what it may seem like our abilities notwithstanding or whatever, we're all here really for the same thing. So I'm going to move on to our reading now. And as you can see, I've tried a different setup. I'm once again in what I call the TFT esoteric dungeon, the subterranean level below our studio, somewhere down in the basement. I have these little panels behind me to provide a little bit of colorful distraction. Other than that, it's pretty plain back there, just some sort of drywall. At any rate, it gives me a little more room to stretch out, and I wanted to try something different today with my cameras because I noticed that a few people have said, oh, the card images are not very clear, and I realized that we're having some problems with that. So I'm hoping by using the internal computer camera, the built-in one has a lot better definition for what I'm doing here until we're able to check that out and reinvest in that. So let's get busy with the fire signs once again. You Aries, Leo, and Sagittarian folks. And our first position is, what emotional happiness will you find this week? Well, it's almost like I didn't shuffle, but I did. You saw that, right? It's the King of Discs. And I'm thinking the emotional happiness you find is being able to be masterful, but also to give, especially when it comes to financially. I don't necessarily think that any one particular sign in the zodiac is a little bit more selfish or is more fixated on material acquisition. I really don't. I can see that in most of the signs, to be totally honest. And I'm not a major astrologer, so I'm just saying that. But I think that this is saying, cooperation, your word of the week. I'm thinking this is just saying, you fire signs, it'll bring you more happiness this week when you're able to kind of give that way too, materially. And it doesn't mean that you have to bring out the checkbook or look up your debit card numbers and type them in, but it does mean, I think, that you have to consider what needs to be given. Maybe it's not just material things like money, but maybe it's other actual physical support. So only you can decide what that might be for those who may need it. But I want you to think about that. Now our next position is, what emotional challenges or surprises will you possibly face this week? And it's the Ace of Cups, and it's reversed. And this almost sounds a little similar to what happened with our air signs. There was a suggestion of some things happening that were similar, but this is a little different. What could be a surprise here, or a challenge? Could be that maybe something you really did feel was emotionally happy, pleasurable. Maybe it was something that was just beginning to, like a new relationship or a new project or a new hobby, something that really you felt pretty good about and you felt like it was fun, it was pleasurable. Maybe you were falling in love. Maybe you were just moving into a deeper area of bonding with somebody emotionally. And now, of course, there's a little bit of a challenge because maybe it just doesn't feel exactly quite the same way. Maybe one or the other of you, or somehow the energies or people, situations that are involved here said something wrong, or maybe they pulled back emotionally. I'm kind of getting a glimmer there. Somebody, maybe it's yourself, maybe it's somebody else, pulled back a little bit emotionally. Like maybe sometimes they were frightened. Maybe you or this other person were frightened about the level of bonding that was happening, how quick it was. And I could see this happening if maybe either of you were already in a strong emotional relationship and maybe you felt somehow, or maybe the other person felt there was something not correct about feeling this happy about sharing time with somebody. I'm wondering if it could be that for some of us here. Lighten up on yourselves. All of us need to bond more with each other, to feel care and concern for each other. Cooperation. So that may be surprising to you, but I think you'll be able to wrap your head around it a little bit if you think about that. Okay? And so finally then, what will concern your relationships, such as your romantic relationships or your family relationships, or platonic ones, good relationships or friendships, acquaintanceships, co-workers. And we have the Queen of Swords. And she's reversed. Now the Queen of Swords reversed seems to indicate to me something happening that causes a decision to be made, a course to be plotted, and sometimes the person makes the best, most reasonable decision they make it from, but they're not partial at all, and that maybe to some degree they're making it a little bit less emotional attachment. They're trying to be totally, I don't want to say harsh because that's the typical meaning of the card, but I'm going to say that maybe there's just a little bit of sternness there, that somebody really wants to play the part of saying, I am totally in the middle on this. I don't care one way or the other about it. And I'm thinking this could be, if it's happening in a relationship, well, a romantic relationship, I question what that means, because it could be saying that maybe we are looking at the idea that somebody has to be the big person in a relationship, and somebody has to make a decision that maybe they know the other person in the relationship isn't going to really like. And I'm thinking that's what this is telling me, is that whether you're that one person or you're the other side of it, you have to come to your terms about that, especially if you're in a very committed emotional relationship. But likewise, if it's a family relationship, you may feel that your responsibility level for the family member, I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's, siblings or cousins or something that has the gestalt of family business, as it were, around it. The idea is that maybe somebody has to decide something. Maybe there's only one person who can make that decision. Maybe there's a legalism. Sometimes the Queen of Swords can indicate a quasi or direct legalism, and maybe one person involved in this situation is on the line because they have a legal authority. So I'm hoping it's nothing really dramatic. I mean, I could see where like maybe another person has health matters that somebody else is going to have to make a decision for because they're not able to. That could happen in a family context. And it may be that you're going to have to make the best decision possible, but you have to try to keep yourself above some of the emotional considerations that are going to be out there. You have to try to make the fairest decision and maybe to not be too harsh. If it's family, I mean, screw everything else if it's family, right? You have to think that way. And likewise, romantic relationships too. So maybe this is really only about a caution about allowing yourself to be put into those positions where you have to choose one person or another person, or one life and another life, or one set of responsibilities for somebody's non-responsibilities. I know how these things go in families. But it also could provide or go towards the idea of what happens in work situations. There's always this idea that there has to be a team at work. But what if there's somebody who really is subversive there, and somebody has to make a decision about where everybody really lies in terms of what they give to the team at work, what responsibilities they do, that kind of thing. So this is going to be a challenge, a real surprise. I know I spent a little time here on that, but that's what I think it is that you have to use your best forms of cooperation, fire signs, especially if you are in leadership positions. So that's what I have for you, and we're going to move on now to our water signs. And water signs, they are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And they tend to lend themselves well to the whole emotional realm of things. They flow. So they're very sensitive and empathic. I know, because I am a water sign. So their word of the week is a nice word of the week. It's transformation, which is Arcana number 21. And especially for Scorpios, that's a really charged word or concept. But transformation probably fits all the water signs pretty well at this point in view. If you have to think about it, water really has no shape, but it takes the shape of the containers or vessels that hold it. So its form is the intent of how it is held to some degree. So our bodies are 75 to 80% water, and they are contained within this form. They are held here. And our emotional qualities, no matter whether we're a fire sign or a water sign or an air sign, it still has that concept there that there's a tempering of what emotionality we have, no matter how we have that, by the form we take. We as humans need to be kind to others. We need to flow with others. We need to recede when necessary. All of that kind of stuff. So think about that in terms of transformation. Be willing to really be a variable, be random, go with the flow. I know you're not really like that, right? So let's go on to our reading for the water signs. Don't fall for me, cards. What a mess. Trying to get it together. Okay, the first card. What emotional happiness will you find this week? Maybe a little. It's the Five of Discs reversed. And that kind of tells me Five of Discs reversed is saying there's been some trials and tribulations. There's been some feelings of bereftness, of feeling like you don't have someone to turn to, someone to help, someone to show you the way. But now recently, perhaps in this week, you're finding that's changing. You're finding that you will be happy because maybe at last you are starting to perceive that there is hope for you, that there are things that can help you. And mostly what it is it's about seeing them. It's about focusing towards them, because maybe when you really look into yourself, you'll be able to admit that you just weren't seeing them, that they really were there all along. And so maybe in and of itself, that's your surprise too. So what emotional challenges or situations, surprises will you face this week? Oops, wrong deck. And I have an Ace of Discs upright, so a beginning. You may find that you have to move into a new situation, a new beginning. Maybe it's a new job, maybe it's new responsibilities. This is a surprise and a challenge. Maybe it's getting you in your comfort zone. Maybe you have to help somebody else who's doing something like that. And if you've been quarantined, or if you've been in a situation where you have felt isolated or not incredibly comfortable around a lot of people right now, this may be challenging to you. It may be emotionally challenging highly, but mostly the prognosis looks good. It may be that you're working towards some situation that's going to benefit yourself. You might have to find a way to transition to something else that helps bring material benefits. So maybe you're moving to a different job from a job, you're moving to a different part of a job, or you're doing something that will be a project for your material benefit. Maybe you're moving monies around, stocks or investments around. Maybe you're doing something in those realms. So now we're going to move on to the last card here. What will concern your relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or family relationships. And I have the Empress. And she's upright. There she is. So, I don't know. Is it time for a blessed event in your romantic relationship? If you are already in a dedicated relationship, this may be an idea that maybe that's going to happen, that maybe some birth or pregnancy could be indicated. But it could also mean, too, that maybe certain couples are going to create something else. Maybe they're going to come together if they haven't been living together married or otherwise. Maybe they're going to come together in a new living relationship. Maybe they're opening up a project together. Maybe they're deciding to start a business together. They're working a garden together. That could be very basic there with that idea of the Empress. You know, she makes everything grow in a way. So it could be that certain projects are gestating or have been, and you're seeing that. Now that could apply to family relationships too. New projects, new births. Maybe it's somebody in the family who's having the blessed event, who announced the blessed event that's coming soon. Maybe somebody in the family will be asking for help to help them move into a situation where they can be more a part of the family and have support for the new additions or what needs to happen as this family is growing. It's about growth. If it's co-workers, work environment, likewise the same thing. Maybe you're getting the sense of some new projects happening. Maybe there's been a lot of reorientation and reimplementation of what's going on. Maybe whole workplaces are being reinvented right now, and maybe you're going to be involved in that, trying to deliver, deliver pregnancy, new services or new ways of delivering services to your clients, your patrons, your situations. So it could be a lot of stuff like that too. Remember, the word of the week was transformation. So I'm thinking this especially goes in line with that, because it's really about being open to the changes that create birth. Birthing anything, whether it was expected or not, is a change. And so it's transforming a lot of different things around you, whether you want it to or not. So I'm thinking that's really what it is. So that's what I have for the water signs. And we thank you for that. And now we're going to move on to our final, the earth signs. Earth signs. You guys are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. You're kind of the rock hard, the rock steady of the zodiac. There's not a lot of things that really ruffle your feathers. You just kind of pick it up and dust off and go. So you don't wear your emotions on your sleeves. You tend to kind of be a little more hidden in that respect, but make no doubt about it, you are an emotional person like all the other signs of the zodiac, all the other emotional elemental associations. So we're going to start by giving you the word of the week. And your word of the week is immortality, which is the Arcana 13, occasionally known as death. Earth signs. Death, of course, is another transformative card, but since we have one already with transformation, I want to go to the other aspects of this card, and I think that what you really see is cycling here. You see the sense of cycling. Transformation could just be saying moving on to any number of things, but the symbols of the scythe and the plants growing, the regeneration really talks more about things that cycle around. And so what goes will come back. And so I want you, the earth signs, to think about that in this week ahead, that you may be hearing about things where you'll feel like it's the end of an era, it's the passing of an age, it's a new tomorrow, because that's really what it is. Things may really change in the week ahead, and you, the earth signs, may really reflect on that a little bit differently than the other signs, because you have a little bit more of a relaxed and take it as it is view, because this is what it is view. You're a little more patient in some respects than the other signs. So that's what I'm saying to you. No matter what happens this week, remember, it's always just going to change again. It's going to change. So now we're going to move on to our reading for the earth signs. And I want to remind everybody this time to watch our live streams. They're there on the schedule below the big camera window. They're twice a week, Thursday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then also on Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also leave a card of the day every single day on our Twitter and our Facebook pages. And those are both TFT Tarot for Today Facebook. And then the Twitter is TFT, it's at TFT Tarot number 4 today. So check those out. We also have a lot of other content on our YouTube channel. Check it out. Please like us. Please subscribe. Get notifications of when we're going live. Comment, share. We thank you. This one fell out, so I'm going to keep it. What falls to the floor, as they say. And it's the Six of Swords. What emotional happiness will you find this week? Well, the Six of Swords suggests to me that for the earth signs, they're going to find emotional happiness this week if they're able to leave certain problems behind. That's literally what it says, is leaving your problems behind, taking the boat down the river and just not looking back. Just go ahead and do that. And that's what I think is an easy way to say, yeah, just moving on. Earth signs, perhaps earth signs, in my opinion, are more influenced by practicality, being an earth sign. And so they may suffer emotionally inside intensely. But they also know sometimes it's just best to move ahead, cut your losses and run, whatever that is. I don't know that this is necessarily about a breakup or anything like that, but what it is about is something that really you felt you had pretty much gone as far as you could with it emotionally, and you're leaving it behind. It is possible that it could be a physical move, that people maybe who are breaking up have to physically move away from each other, move out of the domicile they share, that kind of thing. But if it's not really about a breakup, and if it's about other emotional situations, it's really about getting away from them. And in some cases, people have to leave jobs, leave circles of friends, leave families in order to move ahead. And sometimes it's always about, in this case, avoiding what was emotionally hurtful or troubling. So good luck with that for you, earth signs. We're now going to move to our next position. What emotional challenges or surprises will we be facing this week? The Queen of Discs. She's reversed. Queen of Discs is very similar to the Empress in a way to me. She's a little bit more focused on the sense of being a highly creative personality who has figured out how to do a lot of different things and to also do them well. So this is the kind of person, whether it's male or female, they make you sick because they're very organized and you're probably not. Oh my goodness, this sounds like a Virgo person. Well, I like my Virgos too, but they're the kind of person that not only do they have everything scheduled out, plot out well, they probably remember, and they don't even need the smartphone calendar or the notepad or the planner, because they're just that organized, and they already know 1 to 2 years in advance how their children are working on their college, entrance exams, even though maybe now they're only in junior high. I mean, they're just really, this is what it's talking about here, I think, is that the surprise, I think, comes really when we find we're not able to be exactly as focused and controlled somehow this week. There's a challenge coming to us with this sort of level of focus and attunement, and it may be that events are going on that really are pulling us away from that thing. And I'm wondering if it's connected to the word of the week, the immortality card, which I also line to change and to death, things in a cycle moving on, that maybe, we're approaching the school year, and now there's some big things happening around here in the States with school years opening up. A lot of this is because some of the regulations, standards, precautions for opening up during the pandemic are really differing and or are seen to have evidence showing that it's not working as well as what they're hoping for. People maybe are forced to change a lot of plans in midstream changes, cycles, and it's just not helping with that overall degree of focus, being on top of it, that a Queen of Discs might imply. So that's going to be very challenging this week, dealing with a lot of things shifting around us, earth signs, and having to make some changes on the run in a way. So now we're going to move on to our final card. And we have maybe a little bit of help. We have the Princess of Cups, and she's upright. And the Princess of Cups is like the Page of Cups. So there's a message coming, but there's also a grasp of some intuitive foresight and maybe a little bit of poetic sense of grappling with our problems emotionally by maybe not shrugging it off so much, but maybe just sort of understanding it as emotional point in time, and that it may cycle away a little bit, cycling, new things happening. And so we're seeing that with our romantic relationships and our platonic and also family and friend relationships too, that we're looking at news messages that are helping us relate to what's been going on this week and to understand that there's time for us. This is also a time saying, wait for that message. Wait for that calming thing, that poetic, intuitive sense of looking and feeling from our heart. So I'm thinking that are the kind of things that are happening in all these relationships this week. Finding a time to breathe a little, finding time to meditate, read some poetry, do something to maybe find a little bit of some inner calmness. I don't want to say calmness. I sort of think of this princess as maybe just an agent, not of change, though cups are change, but so it's a little bit of change, but it's really about taking stock of yourself and kind of going in and finding peace within, but finding a joy within, finding something emotional within too that's peaceful. So I'm kind of meandering here, so maybe it's time to tie it up and just say that that's probably what I've got for the earth signs. Sorry about that, earth signs. But you got that watery thing going on there. So I'm hoping everything is okay for all of our signs this week. I hope you enjoy your emotional exchanges in the week ahead, and I hope you'll be able to check it out again next week. Also, don't forget to watch Banshee's Material Matters on Sundays at 10 a.m. She's usually in the chat room to discuss that. And we like to give each other a plug on our shows. So until we see each other again, take care.